Hello everyone, my name is George Slatkovsky, and today we're looking at a new update for GS CurveTools version 1.3.14. So in this update we have even more improvements to the UV editor, and I know that UV editor is not the most exciting feature ever, but I think this update in particular is very important for studio users, for people who work in a studio or work for a studio, for example, because in this update we have UDIM support. So what are UDIMs? UDIMs are just it's called U dimension. It's just a texture map that is split into different files so that the program can load it then, and you can have a lot more resolution, because you can have like 10, 15, 20, 4K maps all applied as one material, as one texture to some model, for example. This is very important for cinematic work or even in-game. A lot of cinematics actually use UDIMs because you need those sharp details. Of course, in the game itself, it's rarely used, but it's with modern GPUs, you can imagine that it will be more and more used in game itself. So this is very important. So let's see how it actually works. So over here I have a bunch of test curves over here that have UDIM texture map, and if we look to the select geometry and we look to the file over here, you'll see that it's a hair texture dot UDIM .png. So UDIM map name looks something like this. And you need to actually name it properly. It's a UDIM Mari style. So other tiling modes are not supported yet, just UDIMs, the classic ones. So you need to have your texture files named properly, and then GS CurveTools will just read those textures and use them in the UV editor window. So in Maya, you need to actually have click this generate preview, and it will show you the texture itself. And in Maya, it looks just like that. Let me just show you. In Maya, it looks just like that. So as you can see, it's a grid of textures. Ignore those numbers. It's just for the internal testing. But as you can see, it's like 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, and then it goes over here to 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, and so on, so on. It can go up to 10 over here. And as far as I know, it can go a lot more in the Y direction, but usually it's at most like 10 by 10. And if you can imagine that those are actually 4K textures, it will be a very heavy material. So this is how it looks in Maya, and let's open up the UV editor right now and select this UDIM texture over here. You'll see that you'll have the exact same representation over here. Let me just make it a little bit bigger. But as you can see, not every map is loaded by default. It's not even loaded in the memory, but it shows you that there's something there. So you can see that you have all the maps over here, and there is a selector over here on the left, UDIM texture, and you can select what UDIM tile you wish to reveal. For example, I want the 11 one on top over here, and you will see that it will load this map to the memory and it will show you. The reason I do this, the reason why they are not shown at all of them at the same time, is because they can be very heavy. You can imagine that, like if you have 10 by 10 over here and you will try to load it everything from the disk to the memory, it will just take a little bit of time. Actually, a lot of time, depending on your computer. So by default, it shows the first map, and then you can decide yourself what to show later. But of course, if you have a beefier computer and you can handle big texture maps and you have a lot of video memory and stuff and RAM, you can just go over here and select all. It will take a little bit to load, but as you can see, all the texture tiles are shown, and of course you can just see what you're working with. Now, after that, this UV editor basically works as it worked before. You select your UV and just like move it whenever you want, wherever you want. And as you can see, if I check the texture, in Maya, it shows properly as UDIMs. Of course, it was like that before, with just the textures were not loading properly. And As you can see, the workflow is the same as it was before. Once again, ignore those numbers. You will not see them on your texture maps. They're just baked in those texture maps that I'm using for testing and demonstration purposes. So for example, you'll just go over here and start placing your UVs. Of course, if you select the normal texture map, none of those controls will be here because well, it's just a regular texture map. You don't need to see those, so they are gone. Let's select the UDIM texture map again, and let's see what else do we have here. So we have also move selected. So you can imagine that if you have a bunch of maps over here just like that, and you actually set them to some kind of positions over here depending on your map, but now for example you change the UDIM tile to something else. For example, it's not 02 but it's 1013, so this one 13. Well, it will be a huge pain to actually move them manually over here and line them up and stuff like that. So right now you have just like move selected functionality, so you can just go ahead and move them on one tile at a time, just like that. And it's very useful if you ever switch like the positioning of your UDIMs. And of course, if you want, you can just select those UVs and move them using your arrow buttons on the keyboard, just like that. It will work the same as those buttons over here. Actually, those arrow buttons, they will be enabled even in non-UDIM texture maps, so you can just use it here. I don't know why you would need that, because, well, you don't have anything over here. But in case you need that, you can just use left, right, up, and down as those functions. But they are most useful over here in the UDIM environment. So this is the UDIM support. I'm very excited about this update. It was actually a little bit tricky to set up for this UV editor, but now you can use them without any trickery of like offsetting your UVs after you set them on the first tile over here, as people were doing before. Right now it will be just UDIM, and you select the map you want and you work on this map, and that's it. So another huge improvement to this UV editor in this update is the speed of this UV editor. Basically, it was optimized to work with a lot of cars now. So first of all, let me just demonstrate how it was before. So I'll just go to the settings. We will discuss this new settings window a little bit later, and I will disable the OpenGL in UV editor. Save it. And now if I open the UV editor and I select all of the UVs, all of the cars on this groom over here, let me just focus on it, and you will see this is the performance that there was before. It's not like super terrible. You can still work with it, but it's like 5 FPS, 3 FPS. I don't know how much this is. So it's horrible, right? Okay, let's close the UV editor right now and open the settings menu over here and use OpenGL. This is, by the way, this is the default. Let's enable it. Let's open it again. And now select those cards, those curves again. And now this is the performance you will get right now. It's exactly the same amount of curves and cards selected, basically. But this is now the performance that you might expect from the UV editor. And this is very useful because sometimes you actually need to work with a lot of cars at the same time, and before it was a bit laggy, and now, as you can see, it's very, very fast. I'm just using the arrow buttons from the previous example just to show that it's very, very responsive, and you can actually full screen it and it still works just fine. And it's actually GPU accelerated, so the beefier GPU you have, the better it will work. So again, if you have any problem with this mode, with this new OpenGL mode, I don't know, I had a little bit of an issue with virtual machine when I was testing the different Maya versions, but on normal machine, normal Windows installation, you should have no issues with OpenGL. But in case you have any issues, you can go to Options, Settings, and use OpenGL in the UV editor. Just deselect it, save it, and the next time you open the UV editor, it will be just as it was before. Absolutely no difference with the previous versions. So as you can see, now it's lagging a bit, but it's the old default rendering. So another minor improvement for the UV editor is better texture scaling. That just adds to the performance. As you can see, when I scale, it will update this map a little bit differently, so it just adds to the performance of the UV editor. But of course, the major improvement is the previous OpenGL mode. All right, so with the UV editor out of the way, let's just close it up and let's talk about the settings menu. So if you remember before, when you opened options, it was just like a huge list of stuff and checkboxes, and it was very confusing. Right now we have functions, import, export, and change scale factor, just like it was before, but all the checkboxes and all the options are actually now in the separate menu over here. And it's very useful to have everything like that, because you can just open it, check whatever you need, reset to defaults if you want, and save, close, and that's it. And forget about this options menu until you need to change something over here. Of course, all the tooltips and stuff works just like before. Number of active layers, just like before, everything is fine here. So no options were removed, just moved to this window over here. And of course, don't forget to press save to actually save it. So another new feature in this update is in curve control window over here. So over here, I don't have any collections, but let me just open the file where I have multiple collections over here. And you'll see that I have main collection 2, 3, and 4. And all of those collections actually hold some curves in them. But now if you select any curve over here, you will also see not only the layer where it is, and but also a collection where this curve is stored. So those drop-down menus will actually also change the collection or layers. Well, layers, it was just like before, but collection will actually change if you change it over here. For example, I want this particular curve in the collection 1. So I can just select this curve and select the main collection, and now this curve will be transferred from the collection 2 to main collection very fast, just like that, and back to collection 2. So you don't need to change collections over here. You can just select all of the curves that you need to transfer to some like particular collection and use this drop down over here. Same with the layers, but the layers they were just transferring every every selected curve to one particular layer on that collection, but this one will actually keep the relative layers. So for example, if this curve is in like layer 4 but collection 2, it will still be in layer 4, but now it's in the main collection. So this is very useful to transfer a lot of stuff around really quickly. And of course, it's a nice visual indicator where your curve is when you select it. And by the way, completely forgot to tell you that right now, scrolling with the mouse is disabled for those layers and collections over here in curve control window over here. So scrolling will do nothing. Of course, it still works perfectly in the collection over here, because this scrolling actually just changed the visibility or like which layers are shown now over here. But over here, scrolling would actually transfer your curves to another layer. And there was a bunch of mistakes that people made, just accidentally scrolling on this thing. And all of their selected curves just go to some like random layer that they accidentally scrolled to. So right now, by default, it's disabled. But if you really need it, it's still in the settings over here. And you can just go to layer collection settings and enable mouse scroll in collections drop down. So this will enable it over here once again. And as you can see, now I'm scrolling and I'm actually changing this, all of those curves collections to main, for example, or to collection 2, for example, just like that. You'll see it will just change, will scroll. But this is very dangerous. So by default, it's disabled. So you'll just have to click manually to select where you want to transfer your curves. So another change in this update is the deprecation of offset attribute. Now, if you open the old project where those offsets are still there, offset attribute on the curve, you will see that we have this like legacy attributes, and you will still see the offset over here. But if you create a new card, over here, you'll see that there is no offset attribute. The reason for this is, let me just show you real quickly. So this is the old way it worked. You use the offset to offset curve of just like that. But of course, after it leaves the curve, it doesn't know where to go, so it just goes in like a straight line. It was useful, but not too much, to be honest. Just like small adjustments here and there, but you cannot control the tip over here because the curve it doesn't control anything. The card is not on the curve anymore. So there was also a problem with this offset. If we go to the scale factor and precision, and if we normalize this card, now with the current precision scale, it was added to have much less distortion on the smaller scale cards and curves. Now with this precision scale, this offset unfortunately is completely broken. As you can see, it doesn't play well with this precision scale. So I had to choose between precision and one attribute, and unfortunately precision won. So offset just goes away. It will not be in these new controls anymore. Of course, if you have the old project, you can still open it and change this offset to zero it out, to reset it back to zero so it doesn't deform. Or if you don't use precision scale in the old projects, you can still use this in the legacy attributes over here. But there's also a fix over here, a new fix. Reset legacy offset attribute, and if you go over here and set it to something like that, and as you can see, completely broken, you can just reset it and it will reset it completely. As you can see, it's successfully reset everything in this old project, and including this card over here. And now if I reselect it, you'll see it will be locked and zeroed out, and that's it. No more offset attribute. Now, another important fix in this update is the layer collections again. Before, when you created a layer collection and you named it like my collection 1, for example, right, with the hyphen over here, it could actually break the regroup by layer functionality. So now it was fixed. Let me just transfer those cards to this new collection so we have something to extract. And now if I just press like regroup for by layers, for example, you will see that my collection and blank, the underscore, there will be no special characters allowed anymore in the names. And of course, Maya doesn't like special characters in the naming of the objects in the outliners. So no special characters, they will be sanitized. And of course, you can still use them in the layer collection names. They will just not be like renamed, drawn, or if you like, for example, extract all with shift, it will extract every card based on the layer, and you'll see that the naming still like sanitized, nothing, no hyphen here, and Maya just doesn't allow it there anyways. Now, another important fix is for the profile graph over here. So I know that some people were using, let me just enable the wireframe so you can know what we're doing. So I know that some people were using this profile graph in this manual mode to sort of like mimic the density of the subdivisions over here, but of course it affected the texture map as well. But some people just they didn't mind it, so it was more important for them to have like a dynamic subdivisions over here. But before, if you switch to some other card, switch to auto and switch back, you would see that it's still like in the auto mode, but it's not equalized. So, and reset curve was doing nothing in the auto mode. But now in this update, even if you have it in auto mode over here, you don't need to switch to manual. You just press reset and it will reset to the perfectly spaced nodes over here, control vertices, and it will not in auto mode, of course, allow you to move it anywhere else other than the central position like that. But of course, manual mode is still here if you really need to have that control. But again, it will stretch and compress your textures as well as the geometry, so be careful with that. And of course, this is not all of the changes in this update, but a lot of them are just small code changes and improvements and bug fixes. They're not like worth even mentioning in this video. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you will enjoy the UDIM support, because I know people were actually asking for it. And yeah, thank you for watching. See you next time.